Welcome back to MOVIEidol. So in this video, I want to answer your guys' questions on Season 10 of The Walking Dead, and I guess anything really related to The Walking Dead. This includes obviously the comics, and as well as the spinoff Fear the Walking Dead, and the Rick Grimes movie coming out next year. At least I'm expecting it to come out next year. Before we jump in, I do have to warn you for spoilers for Season 9 of The Walking Dead, also spoilers for Fear the Walking Dead Season 5's premiere, and major spoilers for issue 192 of the Walking Dead comic series. If you haven't read the issue yet and you're like waiting until this weekend or waiting until you have some free time to go pick up the issue, I recommend not watching this video because I'm going to be talking about a huge event that happened in that issue. But I imagine if you read the last issue, you probably know what I'm talking about already. That's the weird thing about issue 192. I haven't seen anybody really upset over spoilers, just because I think what happened has already been out there for a little bit, and also you're sort of expecting it if you read issue 191. Right? So Raimi Rada asks Q&A, when do you think Heath will finally return, and how do you think he will react to Tara's death? So as for when Heath is going to return to The Walking Dead, he is a character I would really like to return to the show, because Jadis, I think, had a great exit from the series, because she was a really weird character from the beginning anyways, and no one really knew how to feel about her. I didn't like her in the beginning. Well, actually, I guess at first I was like, well, what is this? But I was just more annoyed because we just got introduced to the kingdom and whatnot that season, and we're really getting to know the hilltop and the sanctuary, and then we get this whole group here, and then there's the whole Oceanside thing too. So I was like, what is going on right now? But Jadis' story, I think, is finished on The Walking Dead. I don't think there's really a purpose for her to go back. I think her story should end in the movies, and that she is a killable character in the movies. And I think they could, if they write her really well, she can die in the second movie or something like that, right? I don't want her dying in the first movie just because I want a recognizable character in that second movie. But it depends on the story, obviously. It always serve the story. It depends on what they want to do. Heath, though, is a character from those movies because he's expected to be in the movie. Nothing's confirmed yet because the actor, Corey Hawkins, is always doing stuff. So we'll see what happens with that. He might be available for a movie. Just returning to a television show is such a, it's like a full-time gig that there's not a lot of flexibility when it comes to other things. Like, that's why Denai Guerrera wants to leave The Walking Dead, because she wants to do other things, and she doesn't want to have to be, in Georgia filming from May to November, for The Walking Dead. She wants to be able to do other things. And that's why she was missing for a lot of season 8 of The Walking Dead, was because she was filming Black Panther. And I mean, a television show gig really is, it's a lot, right? Like, it's a lot to take on. So it makes sense. But Heath is a character that I still would really like to have back on the show, because his exit was just very weird. And looking back at it now, it's interesting to see that his exit was tied to the Rick Grimes movie. Like, that's going to be so weird when you rewatch season 7, is when he leaves and when he disappears, it's like, where he went, right? As for how is he going to react to Tara's death, I don't know if he's necessarily going to find out about Tara's death unless Michonne's in that movie. And I don't expect Denai Guerrera to be a part of the first movie, because this first movie, I imagine, is going to fill in the time gap of 6 years since Rick's departure. And I should know, I don't think all 3 movies are going to fill in that time gap. Like, I think the first movie will fill in what happened within those last 6 years, and then the second and third movie will just be from now on and sort of thing, because they definitely want to catch up with time, and I can see them doing that. Denai Guerrera is supposed to be in these movies, and so, it makes sense that somehow they're going to catch up with time. Maybe at the end of the first movie, they jump forward in time or something like that, or Michonne appears in a post-credit scene. Something like that has to happen. She will be in the second movie, and so at that point, Michonne can tell Heath about Tara, but other than that, there's no way Heath is going to know. Bill Whoop asks Q&A, if you could rewrite Rick Grimes' fate, how would you do it? I'm guessing here you're talking about the comics, because obviously in yesterday's issue, or was it yesterday? Yeah, in yesterday's issue, Rick Grimes died in the most brutal way possible. And if I could rewrite his death, I don't know if I would change a lot about it. Like, I'm okay with the simplicity of it. Like, he got shot up in his bed. Getting shot up like that, I wish he would have gotten some sort of final words of some sort, something like that I wish he could have gotten. But despite that, if I could change anything, it probably would be the build to Rick's death, and also, I guess, the character that killed him. The only way I'm okay with Sebastian killing Rick is if issue 193 begins with like a 10-year time jump, or say it's like 20 years or something like that, and we just see how advanced the Commonwealth is, Alexandria and everything. Maybe the world just looks so different. Sebastian has been in there this entire time. He's now 20 years older, right? Like, everyone's 20 years older. They're all going to be in their mid-30s, like Carl and Sebastian anyways, and Sebastian, maybe he's just very evil at this point. He's just, and he's known as the man that killed Rick Grimes. They could do a lot with that, and I think I'd be okay with it if they went down, that route with it, but it's really hard to say how I would rewrite Rick Grimes' death because there's so many ways, right? Q&A, do you think that Negan will die soon in the comic, or when do you think Negan will die in the comic? I don't think Negan's gonna die for a very long time, just because Robert Kirkman hinted recently at the very end of the letter hack section of the comic that Negan will lead the series going forward, and so if they're gonna be focusing a lot on him, they're probably not going to kill him off, right? Makes sense. But I do expect him to die by issue 300. Issue 300 could be the issue where Negan does die. And I really am okay with it at that point because issue 300 is 10 years away? Something like that. So at that point, it makes sense, Q&A, do you actually think Maggie deserves to come back and be the leader of the Hilltop again? I actually don't think she should be the leader again. I mean, I think she would be a good leader, obviously. I think the people of Hilltop would probably elect her really fast, but she did leave, right? And I do think a lot of people are going to be upset about it. Some people will be understanding about it, but there's also the other side. There's always another side to an argument or to an event like that. And I'm sure some people are pissed or like, what? Like you just decide to leave because you just want to leave like that? You just leave us to deal with the Whisperers? All these people died because of you. And I do think that's probably going to be an issue when she returns. I think there will be some people in Hilltop that are going to be really mad that she left because it's like, because you left, you put Jesus in that position to die. You put Tara in that position, which ended up, killing her. A lot of stuff happened because Maggie left. Yeah, it's not her fault, but, she wasn't there for them. And that is the point they're going to argue, right? And so, yeah, I personally don't think she should be the leader, though I don't think she deserves all of that blame. I think she would be a really valued member of the Hilltop, and if any character should lead the Hilltop, I think it probably should be Ezekiel, but the Hilltop now has elections, so we'll see what happens with all of that. I think Ezekiel would be a really good leader. Obviously, I guess the Kingdom's a bad example because it's shut down, but it's shut down for different reasons. I think Ezekiel would be a really good leader of the Hilltop. That'd be an interesting change, wouldn't it? Q&A, how would you think Rick would react when he eventually finds out that Negan has been out of his cell and living among his family whilst he's been gone? I always love your videos, by the way. Well, first of all, thank you very much. And how do I think Rick's going to react to that? It all depends on what Rick's been through, because I think first of all, he's going to trust Michonne. He's going to trust Carol and them. I don't think Michonne's going to be the one to let him out, though. I really think it's going to be Carol. It might be Judith. And I think when Rick comes back, he's just going to be so happy to be back that he's not going to care. And I want to see that sit down with Negan. I want to see him sit down and Rick be like, so you're out now, and Negan's like smiling, is like, yep, I told you were getting this world ready for me, to see them sit down for dinner with Judith and RJ, and Rick's reaction to RJ. And I think Rick might be confused, but I think he trusts Judith's judgment for sure. I think he probably will. He'll just be so shocked to see her just grown up, He trusts Carol. He trusts Daryl to be reunited with Team Family after not seeing them for 6 years. It might even be longer by the time he comes back because these 3 movies, right? It might be closer to 10 years by the time he comes back. He's just going to be thankful to be home in general. Q&A, do you think the Whisperer story arc on the show will kill off characters that are still alive in the comics, such as Eugene dying in the show, but his comic counterpart lives on? There will definitely be some differences, like especially in that love quadrangle between Eugene, Sadiq, Gabriel, and Rosita. One of them for sure is dying in season 10. There's actually a comic death in, I can't remember what issue it is, but it's during the Whisper War, I believe, where Beta cuts open Gabriel's stomach, I believe, and he just allows the walkers to eat him. So Gabriel could get that death, and I could realistically see him get that death, but it all depends on who's put at that lookout tower. And I personally don't believe Angela Kang's going to write that in there. I think Beta's probably going to kill someone because he hasn't killed anybody really close to us like that yet. And I think for sure one of those 4 is going to die. I don't think Eugene's going to die because he's just such a character. You know what I mean? I think if anything, it has to be between those other 3, between Rosita, Gabriel, and Sadiq. Rosita, obviously, she's a character that could die. I don't want her to die. Like, she's one of my favorite characters right now, at least in my top 5, I would say. And so preferably for me, out of Rosita, Sadiq, and Gabriel, I mean, just don't kill off Rosita. I think any of the other 2 might actually get the deaths. If anything, I'm leaning more to Sadiq, only because I think they could probably give him the role of just working or being at the lookout tower, right? Because Gabriel has a very different role on the show right now. But like I said, if Angela Kang changes that, it might not matter. Like Beta might kill someone, but it might not be in the same way as the comic. But there still is a part of me that wants to see that comic moment because it was just so insane. Q&A, do you think we will get Easter eggs or straight up explanations on the A and B and PPP things in season 5 of Fear the Walking Dead? I don't know if we'll get more explanations on the A and B and the PPP card. I think we'll eventually find out some stuff about it. For sure in the Rick Grimes movies, we'll get that explanation. I think the first movie will dive into what A and B mean. But for Fear the Walking Dead to get into that, maybe there'll be something linked to that. But I think it was just literally another card. Like, I don't think there's anything memorable about the PPP part. I think the fact that it was like this card that you would scan on something in general, I think that was the big hint because these people are just, they have such advanced technology. That's the biggest clue. So I don't think the PPP thing really matters anymore. I think it's actually sort of been solved now at this point because we know this group on Fear the Walking Dead has these advanced technologies and that card is related to them, right? Because now we know that Heath went with them. And this one here is not sort of a question, but I did want to talk about it. Can't wait until Rick Sr. meets Rick Jr. And, that's going to be such a mesmerizing moment. I think right now, episode 905 is my favorite of all time. Nothing's ever going to beat that. But Rick's return could be a moment that would beat it because to have him return and meet his son, that's going to be something, because when you lost Carl, it was like, I lost my only son. I lost, the boy that I was raising before all this went down, my connection to the pre-apocalyptic world. And to come home and find out that he has a son named after him, Rick Jr., man, you could just picture the smile on Rick's face, and Judith to be, just grown up. Because she's 10 years old right now. By the time Rick comes back, she could be 12, 14, 15, 16. We don't know when he's coming back to the show. And if he does, it's probably going to be for the last season. So it might not be for years from now. That moment's going to be just amazing. It's really going to be such a monumental moment, such an emotional moment. When Rick comes back, never mind Rick Jr., he's not going to recognize Judith, He's going to look at Judith and be like, wow, you look just like, like your biological mom, Lori, Q&A, which character from the comics that hasn't been in the show are you looking forward to now or to and why? There really isn't a character that hasn't been introduced in the comics or that has been introduced in the comics that I'm waiting for on the show. One character specifically is the princess, I guess. It's not that I'm looking forward to her. I'm just looking forward to how they're going to handle that because she has a very, very specific look and I don't know how the show's going to handle that. She's just going to have to wear a jacket with that pink feather material and her character, just how she is, how she acts. It's going to be weird. I guess you could say Mercer is a character that I'm looking forward to, but I'm kind of not because as much as I think he's a badass in the comic, he's not really that exciting. You know what I mean? Nothing has really happened with him. I guess another character too that we have yet to meet still in the comic could be Sheriff Kapoor. I don't know if they're going to introduce him because I don't know, in what circumstance he's going to get introduced in the comic. And so we'll have to wait and see. But he reminds me a lot of Tyrese. Obviously, Rick Grimes, there's so many comparisons to Rick Grimes, but he reminds me a lot of Tyrese, and to have a character like that back on the show, I think would be really amazing. Q&A question, will Negan take a part in helping defeating the Whisperers? Also, if there is a moment where we get a scene between him and Beta, will he ever reunite with Lucille? I think that's probably going to be one of the bigger moments of season 10 is when he reunites with Lucille. I still don't understand what happened to Lucille. I know there's some sort of logical explanation for it. I know Daryl has never really mentioned anything, but you gotta remember too, Daryl hasn't really talked about, Negan that much really to people. So I think Daryl taking Lucille, I think that, that makes a lot of sense that Daryl would hide Lucille because you gotta remember, where would Lucille be in Alexandria? No, I don't think Lucille's in Alexandria. The hilltop? Maybe Maggie took Lucille, but I also don't see that. There's a chance of that maybe, but I don't know. It's not the kingdom for sure because they abandoned the kingdom. So I think we're really down to two options, and that is Daryl or Maggie. And because we don't know if Maggie's coming back, I think if anything, Daryl probably took it because maybe Daryl's planning to use it on Negan if he ever escapes. Because Daryl's that kind of person, and it makes sense. He had a little camp over there. I think if anything, Daryl has Lucille right now, but he's just keeping it hidden because obviously he doesn't want to remind people of that bad or the situation. But thank you guys all for posting in this Q&A. I will post another Q&A next week, or it could be the week after, but I'm pretty sure I want to do this weekly. I want to try to keep these every Wednesday. I know this one came out today because it was a Thursday, but it's because the comic came out yesterday. And yeah, we'll see. I'm really just testing out this Q&A thing right now. I want to do it weekly. but I also would like to do it monthly, like just do a monthly Q&A and call it like volumes or whatever. But we'll see what the response is to doing it weekly first. And if everybody wants it weekly, then I'll just continue to do this. But for next week, just post your questions down below and I'll pick 10 questions again. And yeah, thank you guys for watching.